Stephen Garvey, founder, leader of National Citizens, and I emphasize citizens there, Alliance of Canada, NCA. This is going to be a brief introduction on taxation, Canada Pension Plan, and Bank of Canada. I'm going to sketch out briefly the issues in these three areas and then provide briefly the solutions. The purpose of today is to give you basic facts and then our solutions so you can make the best decisions going forward. There's so much nonsense in the mainstream media, on social media. So at NCA, we're all about facts and knowledge. We want to empower you to make the best decisions. That's what we're all about. We're all about empowerment. The stronger the Canadian people are, the more self-sufficient, the more prosperous and secure our country will believe. That's the basic underlying belief of NCA. It's all about empowering the Canadian people. I'm going to start with taxation here. Just so you know, I could talk all day on these subjects. This is going to be very brief and to the point. Leave your comments so we can learn from you as well. And please share the message tonight so we can wake up more Canadians. The first thing is taxation. There was a Fraser's Institute report. I'm going to refer to it. It's not an end in of itself, but it's a good starting place. Since 1961 to 2018, all types of taxes have increased by 2,246% since 1961. 2,246% increase in total taxations since 1961. Get your mind around that. Unbelievable. Taxes have grown more rapidly than any other single expenditure for the average Canadian family. Clothing, 1,593% increase. That's shelter, actually. Clothing, 769% increase. Food, 639% since 1961. The tax increase on Canadians, which is a form of control enslavement, is more than triple the Consumer Price Index, which measures the average price of consumers pay for food, shelter, clothing, transportation, health, personal care, education, and other items. 750% increase in the Consumer Price Index, 2,246% increase in taxes. There's something wrong here. Canadians they're basically tax slaves to these top-down governments, and they're told to keep quiet. That's reality. Many Canadians are struggling to make ends meet while they're burdened with this extreme taxation. The average Canadian family spends more of its income on taxes. This is income tax, provincial and federal. It's averaging around 44.2%. Then basic necessities, which is at 36.3%. And 33.5% of average family's income went to pay for taxes in 1961. While 56.5% went to basic necessities back then. We're now paying 44.2% on taxes. 36.3% now. Canadians are spending way more on taxes now and way less on basic necessities. How is that improvement in the country? Where's the improvement? You're paying more tax and you have less money to meet your basic needs. This is the trajectory of the country. And I have to qualify, this report is limited by the Fraser Institute. What they're referring to there, 44.2%, as I mentioned, that's only provincial and federal taxation combined on an average. What it doesn't include is all the other taxation, property tax, provincial sales tax, GST, consumer taxes. And if we combine all the taxes, we're around 89 cents on every dollar earned goes to tax for the average Canadian. That leaves you with 11 cents left over. This is tax enslavement. And there's no end in sight. This is what we're proposing. I'm not going to go into all our tax solutions, but go to our website, nationalcitizensalliance.ca, and you will see a comprehensive policy on taxation. But the basic premise to our tax plan is major cuts to the federal bureaucracy, 50% cut over 4 years, 75% cut in foreign aid outflow, major reduction in migration into Canada, which is causing severe strain on our welfare social services systems. This will save a lot of money, allow us to reduce taxation. We're proposing a 2-tiered flat tax at 15% and 25% for those over $200,000 income. There will be no federal tax on persons living at or below the poverty line of $22,000 or less under NCA governance. NCA will implement an immediate end to federal carbon taxation and any other levy on carbon emissions. And a couple of other items, 2-tiered approach to debt stress test to allow new homeowners who do not reside in major urban centers to have the opportunity to buy their home. Another one is interest paid on primary house mortgages will become tax deductible under NCA. Again, this will aid new home buyers, and this will encourage property ownership in Canada. But look at our taxation there, our plan. We think it's a great plan, but it's all premised on cuts and getting this monstrosity of federal government under control. I'm going to shift to the Canada Pension Plan. This plan is worth over $400 billion as of June 2019. The maximum payout under the Canada Pension Plan is currently, this is from 2018, is $1,134.17 per month, which translates into $13,610.04 per year. That's the maximum you can get under the Canada Pension Plan. The maximum contribution per month is $2,748.90. That's the max you can contribute from working, and this is matched by the employer. The federal government, since the inception of Canada Pension Plan, has control over the fund, even though it doesn't contribute anything into it. It has done investments that are counter to the investors into it, you, the Canadian people, such as in 2015, $2 billion of pension funds were invested in low-income housing in Mumbai, India. This is a good example of the misuse of the funds for alternative agendas of the federal government. In addition, the Canada Pension Plan, it's run by the Canada Pension Investment Board, has been plagued with poor return on investment. Meanwhile, they get big bonuses, who's ever on that board. This plan is out of control. In our opinion, the Canadian people are getting ripped off. I'm going to go into our solutions to deal with what's going on. Our plan at NCA is to give pension contributors more control over their pension funds by decentralizing the pension fund, by allowing private sector investors to manage pension funds. So we want to get it out of this centralized control of the federal government. We estimate at NCA that we can give CPP benefits up to 3 times more than what they're doing now. And I'm going to do the calculation to show you. Here's an investment calculator. So there's the contribution starting amount. And this is over 35 years. It's just assuming you're working 35 years. And there's an average return of 6%. And there's additional contributions per year of $2,000. That would actually be per month. I'm going to calculate that. So you're going to end up with a balance after 35 years in your pension fund of $797,000 in your pension fund. This is not including the backup, the contribution by the employers. So let's say at this stage, when you retire, you take out $15,000 per year, which is more than you're giving you now. You would still be left over a 20-year period. Let's say you live from 65 to 85, there would still be $797,000 in the fund, because $15,000 over 20 years works out to $300,000. So without even the contribution of the employers, you're going to end up with more than what the government is giving you. Now let's double this up. We're going to add in employer contributions here. We're going to calculate it now. So under this plan, with employers contributing matching what you put in per month, you're going to end up with a balance of $750,000, 278, 35 years, 6%, additional contributions per month. Well, that's actually per year. That's why it's so high. You're going to end up with $633,000 plus. That actually works out to, we would be able to pay you under this plan, we would be able to pay you $30,000 a year, assuming you retire at 65, and you're deceased, let's say around 85, you would get $30,000 a year under this plan. You would be left over with $33,774 in your plan, plus all the interest accumulated while you're taking it out. So you would probably have $150,000 left in your plan. This is why we think Canadians are getting ripped off. Even if we forget about the employees matching, NCA can still offer you more than the government is. This is all wrong. And I'm going to add one other thing in here. One of the big scams too is that when a person dies, he or she can only give their spouse 60% to your spouse if your spouse is over 65. And if you're under 65, the spouse, they only get a flat rate plus 37.5%. If there's no spouse and you die and you have children, you can only give your children under age of 21 $250.27 per month, up to 25 years. This is wrong, everyone. What NCA will do will ensure that whatever's remaining in that pension will be 100% transferred to your spouse. And when the spouse dies, if there's children, overage, underage, it doesn't matter. If there's offsprings, 100% will get transferred and divided up to them because that's their money. That's what we will do. I'll tell you, Canadians will be very wealthy just from this pension plan alone. They're getting ripped off right now. We have migrants coming into the country who haven't paid a dime into CPP who are accessing it. What is the government doing with all the money? We're going to shake this up. We're the only party running in the federal election that's going to deal with this unfairness with the CPP, the ripping off of the Canadian people. It's a serious issue. And this is going to have great benefit for our seniors, for all Canadians. And this is how it should be. I'm going to turn now to the Bank of Canada. Nationally, the federal debt, we're paying $64 billion plus. We figure around $66 billion now in debt service payments to banks without even touching the principal. This is coming out of your tax dollars. The federal part of this, annual debt service payments, we figure it's around $32 billion a year and growing. And I want to show you this graph here which talks about it. Ottawa racks up $1.4 billion deficit in the first 2 months of fiscal year. And it talks about the debt service payments here. That public debt charges rose 13.3% or by $600 million. So all these deficits by these mainstream parties, you are paying for it. It's leading to all these debt service payments to these banks. That means less services for you, higher taxes for you. Here's I'll bring this up now. In 1974, Pierre Trudeau shifted the public lending right from the Bank of Canada to central banks. This is the right to print Canadian currency. This was a major turning point in our history for the worse. All the economic data shows it. And I'm not going to go into it all, but here's the money supply. When it shifted in 1974, there's been an over 800% increase in the money supply. Right here, look at that. All these central bankers printing our currency. Every time they print the currency, that is inflation. Inflation means your cost of living is going higher. This is the debt. It exploded in 1974, coincidentally. Look at it. Doesn't matter which mainstream party. And this was a boom period, and it didn't go down much, and it's only increasing here. Canada is being fiscally, monetarily mismanaged. These mainstream parties are completely off course. The country's heading down the drain in debt, taxation. It's obvious. And we can easily blame the Liberals, but the fact is, since 1968, the Conservative Party has added more than double to the federal debt than the Liberal Party. Both are terrible, but that is a fact. This here too, this is inflation. So this just shows the impact of printing all that money, all that debt. So in 1973, $100 is now, you would have to spend $544.49 in 2019 to have the same value in 1973. That's inflation. That means your dollar, which you earn, is worth less by a lot. Prices today are 444.49% higher than average prices throughout 1973. Again, look at the chart, everyone. Just growing and growing. It parallels that money supply chart that I just showed you. You see that? So what's the solution to this? Everything's costing more. You're getting taxed to death. The debt service payments to these banks are increasing. They control your wealth. The currency, too, is tied to other, what's called fiat currency. So if they crash, like the US dollar and other dollars, then we will crash. So what's the solution? Why isn't no one else talking about it? What could be more important? NCA's solution is to create a people's bank by reinstituting the 1934 Bank of Canada Act, including the 1938 amendment, which nationalized the bank, and we have additional amendments ourselves. Also, we will shift the public lending right from central banks back to the Bank of Canada, so only this new nationalized People's Bank will be able to print the money. So we're going to get control over the money supply, control over inflation, and we will eliminate the massive debt service payments to these banks. Another thing we will do, we will use the new bank to pay off the federal debt at 0% interest. We will print the money, pay it off, and then we will pay back the debt. We're going to have to pay it back. We will also use the bank to fund infrastructure without the usury and control of wealth by the central banking cartel. This is our way out of it. But we have to be fiscally responsible. We can't be having all these deficits of these mainstream parties. We can get out of this. And if you listen to any of these mainstream career politicians, go back to Martin, Chrétien, Mulroney, up to the present time. They all cry inflation. We can't do anything about it. But look at deflation from this situation. They are lying to you. They are lying to your straight to your face. We got to break this crooked system. Canadians are getting fleeced. They have no control over their wealth. Another thing we will do, we will bring back the gold standard. Because right now, the Canadian currency is tied to fiat currencies and therefore is highly vulnerable to a major global crash. Why do you think China, Russia is buying up all the gold? So they have solid commodity backing that shelters them from a global crash. NCA would reinstitute that. We would start buying up gold reserves to protect our wealth. I can't go into it any further, but look through our policies on these key issues. But it's very disturbing what's going on. Very disturbing. This country is completely fiscally, monetarily mismanaged. There's a top-down establishment elite that are ripping off the Canadian people. Thank you for joining me. Please share the message. And I have to stress this, what a better reason to run for NCA, to vote for NCA. These 3 reasons alone. Wonderful stuff from NCA.